Excellencies, esteemed speakers, and honored guests, my name is Sara Al-Matroshi from the Knowledge and Innovation Department at Dubai Municipality. Good morning and welcome to the second day of the Knowledge Connect conference. Whether you have just registered today or joined us yesterday, we would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Yesterday, we have learned a lot from our passionate presenters and enjoyed their thoughtful presentations and discussions, which initiated various new ideas and thoughts in our minds. Today, we are continuing our collective learning process with the lineup of keynote speakers, and my colleague Peter Farrington will take you through the details of today's program. Meanwhile, let's start our second day with a word from the engineer Ahmed Al-Bidwawi, the Director of the Knowledge and Innovation Department at Dubai Municipality.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the conference. Our first day has been a great source of knowledge. We learned a lot from the keynote speakers and the fruitful discussion they led with our audience. We are delighted to connect different parts of the world in one event, which is an integral part of Dubai Municipality's participation in our national event, UAE Innovates 2022. Innovation is not a choice for us in the UAE. It is our way to achieve our objectives. To do so, we constantly have to be equipped with the right tools and strategies. Through our Knowledge Connect conference, we are here to listen, share, think, challenge and embrace all the ideas that will emerge for this conference. Thank you for participating. I'm certain that by the end of this day, we will leave this conference inspired and driven toward a more innovative environment.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Engineer Ahmed and Sarah. Welcome back to day 2 of Knowledge Connect. My name is Peter Farrington. I'm your host for the event for today, and I hope everybody had a good night's sleep and have fresh new ideas. I know I got a few from yesterday's sessions, and I expect more will be coming today. Thank you all for your comments and shares yesterday, and we look forward to more and more input from you over the course of this day and even following this conference. So I'm just going to give you a brief recap of what happened, at least the highlights that we have from the first day. So we started off with Mr. Ron Young, and he shared his wisdom about the importance of building integrated knowledge capital and knowledge assets through innovation and standardized systems. He was followed by Mr. Hank Malik, who provided deep insights about organizational learning, emphasizing that digitalization is an increasingly important tool for all countries. The highlight for me was the panel consisting of Excellencies Dr. Aisha bin Bishr, Dr. Khalid Mustafa, and Dr. Asma Nusari. And it was wonderfully chaired by Mr. Izzadeen Khalife. They shared their empowering insights on the rapid transformation of cities and the role of tools like the metaverse. 3 other messages that come to mind for me are digitalization can never override the human element. They serve humanity. So something that was common from all the speakers yesterday was this is really still a people-centered event. Knowledge management is still about people. So this to me was very heartening and also empowering to hear. The metaverse is here to stay, and it's a wonderful tool for us to use and experience. Mindset is a key factor. That was the 3rd one. So let's give you a quick overview of Day 2 program. So the first will be an example of knowledge management and innovation awards that Dubai Municipality has been grateful to receive over the years. It's the APQC award. So that's the first item on the agenda. That'll be followed by a talk from Dr. Hitendra Patel, the impact of private-public partnership and knowledge and innovation management on government excellence. There'll be a 15-minute break, followed by the second speaker, David Gertine, delivering innovation through conversation. The next break will be highlighted by a Share Your Thoughts session between Soha and myself, where we'll take more of your comments that we've received over the course of yesterday and today. So please share your thoughts. And when you do that, in the comment section, type in my thoughts so we can find it very quickly, and then we can make sure we can incorporate it into the session. The final part is a panel discussion, the role of gamification in knowledge and innovation management and its impact on organization performance. So let's go to the APQC Award. That's the first item on our agenda. And for this, I will welcome Soha, my co-host for this event. So Soha, please share with us one of the proud moments that we've had for Dubai Municipality about the AFQC Award.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning and hello for everyone on our second day of the Knowledge Connect conference. Actually, Dubai Municipality have come across and have come along through various initiatives, I think, that put it at the top of various with various organizations. Dubai Municipality actually has won lots of awards and has been recognized by different global parties. For example, one of them was the Mike Award. Mike Award was given to us, and we have been recognized among top 5 organizations globally in 2020. And recently, during 2021, we have been also awarded with the APQC Award. APQC Award, it gives us the award in the Excellence in Knowledge Management. We have been ranked among the top 6 organizations worldwide and among the top 3 organizations in applying excellence in knowledge management at the enterprise level. When we're talking about the enterprise level, actually we are talking about how to implement knowledge management at the whole organization. Imagine Dubai Municipality has more than 12,000 employees, a very complex and very big organization, and has more than 35 departments working together and 14 different businesses. Accordingly, this was really an achievement. We will go directly to Lauren Trees, which will be giving us more about the assessment tools and the significance of measurement, as long as it will give us elaboration about the assessment tool they are using. Lauren Trees is the Principal Research Lead for Knowledge Management at APQC, and she's responsible for identifying trends in enterprise knowledge sharing and collaboration, investing cutting-edge ways to improve knowledge flow, and sharing her findings with the APQC members and the business community at large. Her current projects focus on KM benchmarks and metrics, content management, and integrating KM into different parts of businesses, such as R&D and customer service. Lauren has written for numerous media outlets, and her research has been cited by Forbes, Time, and the Wall Street Journal. Let's hear a word from Lauren Trees.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Trees, and I am the Principal Research Lead for Knowledge Management at an organization called APQC. And we are a member-based nonprofit focused on benchmarking and best practices research. And I talk to knowledge management leaders all the time. And one of the messages that I consistently emphasize with them is the importance of regularly evaluating and measuring their KM efforts. That's how you understand your baseline. It's how you show progress. It's how you figure out what maybe isn't working so well that you need to tweak. And it's also a way to convince stakeholders, especially skeptical ones, that KM is making a meaningful difference in terms of improving quality, saving people's time, improving innovation, whatever end goal you set out with when you looked to improve the flow of enterprise knowledge. And we find that KM programs sometimes really slack off on measurement, especially when no one's asking them for that data. And that is a really risky approach. Even if you feel pretty safe, you never know when you're going to have a leadership change, a reorganization, a strategy shift, something that forces you to prove that KM is a thing that the organization still needs to invest in. And we have seen successful, long-standing KM programs absolutely implode overnight because they had stopped measuring and then changes happened around them, and they didn't have the data in their back pocket to justify their existence. Okay, so we know measurement's important. What does it look like? And for knowledge management, I tend to think about measurement in 4 categories. First, you have activity measures. Is knowledge sharing and reuse happening? Are people participating? And then you have your process measures, and that's really around efficiency and effectiveness, user satisfaction, content quality, things like that. And then you have your value metrics, and that's all about ROI and business outcomes you can tie to KM activities. And then the final category here is around maturity assessment. And this is where you look at the KM program and whether it's progressing towards its goals, and whether there are any gaps or steps it may have missed that might be holding it back. And all of these categories are important, but at maturity assessment, it's particularly helpful to get an objective outside view. And there are lots of outside tools you can use to measure your knowledge management maturity. At APQC, we use our KM maturity assessment tool. And that is a very thorough assessment that looks at your KM maturity across 12 capability areas, everything from your business case and your budget through your tools and approaches, your content management and IT, and then program support elements like change management and measurement. And we see people use the KM capability assessment in all sorts of different ways. The first time you take the assessment, maybe you're a newer KM program, it helps you establish a baseline and set realistic goals and expectations moving forward. So you're not trying to do 3 years of work in 6 months. And also prioritize opportunities because you can't do it all at once. And then as you move forward, the assessment can help you demonstrate your progress. And it can also help you standardize because you see maybe areas of the business that are more mature and ones that are lagging a little bit. And then finally, the assessment can help you as you become a truly mature organization showcase your success. And at APQC, we acknowledge truly mature KM programs with our excellence in KM recognition. And we have had more than 25 KM programs officially recognized so far, but I wanted to talk about just one example, which is PTT Exploration Production, which is the National Upstream Oil and Gas Company of Thailand. And PTTEP has participated in the capability assessment 4 times since 2011. So this is really a more than decade-long journey for them. And each time, especially in the early taking of the assessment, they were able to use that data to communicate gaps to leaders. And it really became a rallying cry for improvement within KM, within the organization. And PTTEP was able to achieve level 3 maturity in 2019, which is all about standardization. And then they were able to better that in 2021 by achieving level 4, which is all about optimization and continuous improvement. And the assessment has been a great tool for them, both in terms of communicating the need for better KM and showcasing that success as they got there. And that's true of many organizations, including Dubai Municipality, which we recognized in 2021 as a level 5 mature organization through our Excellence in KM program. So thank you so much for having me. And I would love to speak to any of you more about KM measurement and how you look at value and maturity. Take care.
Well, thank you very much, Lauren and Soha, for that very interesting award discussion and conversation. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker for the day, Dr. Hitendra Patel. Dr. Patel is the founder and managing director of the IXL Center, Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA. Dr. Patel's entire career has been marked by innovation. Starting in 1987 at the Iowa State University of Science and Technology, he innovated hardware and software developments in his first position as a laboratory assistant. 35 years later, Dr. Patel has founded and actively managed key positions in a diversity of academic, not-for-profit, and commercial organizations pertaining to innovation, education, and social responsibility. Let me list just some of his current positions. Professor of Innovation and Strategy in Rotman's Global Executive MBA program at the University of Toronto, Professor of Growth and Innovation, Hult International Business School, partner and member Clinton Global Initiative, founding and managing partner of Global Innovation Management Institute, the largest certifying institution on innovation, board director, Hult Prize Foundation, and charter member, TIE Boston, a non-for-profit entrepreneurship. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Hitendra Patel, Dr. Patel, who will be speaking to us about the impact of private-public partnership in knowledge and innovation management on government excellence.
Thank you, Peter. What a great introduction. And it kind of makes me realize how much older I am before I actually started everything. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Here in Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts, it's 2 a.m. So I'm really happy to be here, but I hope that I will be able to keep you guys energized and excited about this very important topic called innovation management. So let me begin just a high level in what I wanted to talk about. Innovation management is a topic that has moved from knowledge to actually capability building, and from capability building to actually driving results. I have been working for the last probably 35 years working in Motorola, helping with innovation, helping big companies trying to build innovation systems and make sure the knowledge and everything else that you need to make innovation happens. And as a management consultant working for Monitor Group with Michael Porter, working at Arthur D. Little, around every single organizations which are out there, we found a couple of things as we brought innovation into those organizations, is that when the consultants were there, when the attention of the CEO was there on innovation, innovation was happening. But the second we left, the second the investments kind of declined or the attention of the C-level executives, the leaders went somewhere else. The next big thing, whether it's digital transformation, whether it's Six Sigma, whether it's AI and robotics, what was the next big thing, innovation as an initiative would kind of wither and die. And so I asked myself, why was that happening? And that gave birth to what we call the Global Innovation Management Institute. I said, what if we were to train people from the bottom up, from the top down, and really create a common language and a common framework? And so today what I'm going to talk about is first the framework of Jimmy Institute about innovation and why it was created and how it came to the world. Second, I want to talk about the Dubai Government Excellence Program and the partnership Jimmy has with them as they roll out this knowledge and capability building across the government entities of Dubai. I'll give you some examples of what's going on around the world that Jimmy is participating in, and you'll be really, really surprised at how broad innovation is and how important it is to the eyes of governments, universities, organizations, high schools. And then we'll talk about what should be next for Innovation 4.0, because everything has a 4.0 now. So what's Innovation 4.0? Okay. So high level, Jimmy framework was created over the last 25 years. And the real problem was innovation was not really well known as a management discipline. And just like marketing is a segment target positioning, just like strategy has got where to play, how to win, the 5 forces of Michael Porter. Unfortunately, innovation did not have a management discipline. You had too many books about innovation. There's too many experts on innovation. Each one was talking about something like blue ocean, disruptive innovation, design thinking, agile, scrum, and all those things were kind of pieces of what was actually you needed to do. But there wasn't a systematic system that everybody, chief innovation officers, could actually talk about. And so the idea was, if you could create a management discipline and create a common language and common framework inside an organization, or actually across multiple organizations, then we can maybe start creating this thing called a capability. In the past, it was individuals talking about what they knew. Building a capability was the main part of the game, and how do you build organizational capability. So the framework emerged, which was basically around three things on innovation. One, you need to know where to innovate. You need to know where, why, when. That's strategy. Innovation strategy was one of the legs of innovation. The second one was basically, even if you knew where to innovate, it doesn't mean innovation happens. You have to think about the capacity. You have the capacity to do it. You have people, you have systems, you have resources to do that. And that had to be built into the organization. And the last one was, even if you had the strategy of where to innovate and you have the capacity to innovate, you have the discipline to finish what you start. Innovation is hard. What we found again and again is people like to start. They love the post-its. They love the workshops. But then when you have to actually implement, that's where the hard work starts. And a lot of people, when they hit the first obstacle, they usually quit. So this framework was basically saying, you know where to innovate, you know how to innovate, you have the discipline to innovate, and how do you make that an organization's capability? And therein, the framework evolved over the last 25 years into what it is today. One of the leading frameworks that has been deployed across companies, governments, universities around the world. The framework on the right, gives you more detail in terms of how you actually can take the system of innovation and make it real. The system on the right-hand side is a framework, and each one of the elements of it kind of gives you more detail. So around strategy, there are many elements that you need to pay attention to: where, why, and when. Around capacity, you've got to pay attention to people, processes, and resources. And then around discipline, you've got to think about innovation leadership and the metrics. This system was then converted into what we call something actionable. The problem with most of the topics of innovation, and many things that we try and do, which are emerging into a management discipline, is they're considered art. When it's an art, it's hard to execute. You got to get it down to something about how do you do it. So it's not the what, but it's the how. That's the most powerful thing you guys will ever embrace in whatever you do. You can talk about what is strategy, but how do you create strategy? How do you implement strategy? You can talk about what is capacity. You need to know how. And so this system was then broken down to very specific elements. If you have these elements in place, you should be able to develop a very strong innovation strategy, innovation capacity, and innovation discipline. And from there emerged the notion of maturity. Our last speaker just now mentioned about maturity level 1, 2, 3, and 4. So how do you create maturity? So you can assess different organizations and say you are at a maturity level 1 or 2 or 3 based on how far you've gone. So this thing was then further mapped into the system, which says if you are a level 1 maturity, how well is your strategy defined? How well is your capacity defined? How well is your discipline defined? And ultimately, the results, the real results, reason for why we do all of this is what are the improvements, what are the new growth that you were able to implement. And depending on where you are on each of those dimensions, you can get a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 maturity. And this has been deployed over the many years across the globe. And Dubai as a country, as a kingdom, has been very keen on making sure this begins to become one of its cost sets. Once you got the maturity levels, and you can try and assess where you are with your level 1, 2, 3, 4, then you can say, if I'm level 2, how do I get to level 3? If I'm level 3, how do I get to level 4? And that creates a roadmap that you can create from saying, here are the elements of what makes you level 1, 2, and 3. So in order for you to go from 1 to the next, that's all you have to do. You go to level 3, here's what you have to do, and it distributes across each level. This roadmap translates into actionable things for you and your organization. Dubai Municipality has been one of the leaders in the region and embracing, saying it's not about talking about innovation, it's actually building that capacity, building that strategy, building the discipline, and always asking, what can I do to go to the next level, the next level? So having the step of where you can go from one level to the next level, it gives you a little bit of comfort. Most people, when they say, I want to become more innovative, they say, can I be more like Apple? Can I be more like Google? Can I be like when I used to work at Motorola? Why can't I be more like that? The reality is, it's very hard to go from kindergarten or primary school straight to graduate school. And so the idea over here is if you create a step function over years, 1 year, 2, 3, 4 years, you will be able to get there. And you will be able to run this. It's like running a marathon. You can't just start. You start building the capacity, building the muscle, building the things inside the company and not get rejected. So these roadmaps are really powerful, and we have already seen organizations, including you guys, Dubai Municipality, going down the path of looking at the framework, assessing where you are today, to interviews, real deep analysis of the audit with a strategic partner there in Dubai, and basically creating roadmaps, and then basically improving this thing and moving from what I would call knowledge about innovation to actually building it inside multiple peoples, and over time through multiple people, then working with common language, common framework, capability that starts driving results. Dubai, just some examples in Dubai, we have already seen organizations embrace this way of working, where they say if we can use the system, we can move our organizations from what we were doing innovation. Of course you were, but now we can systematize it and grow it. Dubai Statistics Center, as an example, has been doing this. The Road Transportation Authority, just to celebrate people in Dubai, is the first road transportation authority in the world to get a level 4 maturity. So congratulations to Dubai for that. In Ayala is one of the biggest companies in the Philippines, and they are a level 2 maturity company, and they're conglomerated. Telecom, they have banks, they've got malls, and they've got all kinds of things. And they basically built this company, and they're basically saying we need to build a systematic way to get to innovation. The Abu Dhabi port is another example. And then you can go to Colombia. Oil and gas companies are basically saying we need these things in our systems. How do we get to the next level? And this is something that's beginning to spread around the world. Now, why is this important in Dubai? In Dubai, the Government Excellence Program asked Jimmy to say, tell us what is going on in city governments, not just corporations, but city governments. And what are city governments doing around the world to make sure that their particular entities are excellent or the world's best, or striving to be the number 1, number 2 out there. And therefore we can drive the best services, the best through innovation for our community. And so we did an assessment around the world. The good news was, as we looked at the assessment, we looked at what was the content of strategy in the UK, in Sweden, in Switzerland, in Canada, in Singapore, in Korea. And we were able to collect a lot of learnings from that. And from there, we created a very personalized, customized Dubai Government Innovation Framework, which belongs to Dubai government. And they are now basically saying, we've got a book, we've got a manual, we've got instructions, we've got a way to audit ourselves. And they're beginning to assess each of the government entities one at a time. And every year, they bring consultants from outside. They come and assess entities like yours and others. And then they give you, where are you? And here's the roadmap for you to improve. And then you sign up for it. This is very powerful because it creates some really exciting thinking. First, if all the entities have a common language and a common framework for innovation, it means you guys can move horizontally between your entities. If you have a common language and common framework, then you can also be able to collaborate with each other because you understand each other very quickly. Common language, common framework empowers teams, empowers functions, empowers organizations. And then those organizations, those entities can collaborate with each other. And then as they collaborate across each other, then you get the real power of innovation. This book you guys can download from the Dubai Government Excellence Program websites, and it gives you a lot of good, interesting content in there and guidance. You guys probably have seen it. And again, inside there is a system. Look at the framework, look at your audit and outcomes, a roadmap for you to improve. Now, what does that mean in the future for government entities? Well, just as the government entities are ranked, as in Dubai, for happiness, and saying who's number 1, number 2, number 3, those happiness rankings will eventually come in innovation. Your entities will be compared to each other, saying who is number 1, number 2, number 3. And just like we rank the most innovative companies, believing that those companies that are innovative are the better companies of the future, the same rankings will come out inside the government entities, saying which entities are really investing in the future, especially in the future that's about to change all the time as we get into more ambiguity, more uncertainty. And how do we have the most adaptive, flexible government entity? These rankings will basically indicate who's ready for the future. And the rankings will also create competition. And that competition will create, again, an improvement across all the entities. And so those who lean forward, embracing innovation, sooner or later, they'll see the benefits of it. And those who kind of say, oh, I'm not interested, it's going to become at least visible to the world. But expect this to happen in the near future, where rankings will happen, just like what you have in the government, in the happiness ranking. So the GCIO was another entity that the DGP came and says, let's create something that the knowledge that we are distributing in the government entities of Dubai is not enough. We can't be complacent. Just because we put the manual together doesn't mean it's going to be stable for the rest of history. We have to make sure that we are the first ones to improve on it, add to it, and do something else. So the Global Council was created in partnership with Jimmy and Dubai government. And the idea of the entity was to bring together different regions of the world and say, what innovation frameworks are you guys using? Are they new frameworks? Are there new inputs into the framework that we can modify in Dubai and simultaneously share what we're learning in Dubai, in Barcelona, in Spain, in La Salle, or in Australia, or what's going on in the mayor's office in Bogota, or what's going to happen in the Ayala Corporation in the Philippines, or what's happening right here in the United States in terms of innovation. So that's the whole idea, was to bring together different people from around the world, share ideas with each other, and then make this best practices made available to each other. And we have members that we will add to that in the future from other regions, just to make sure we never ever become arrogant, and we remain humble to the fact that the world is changing, and where the change is happening is not always where you are. So open our eyes, listen carefully, and embrace it. And if we can remain humble, we too can innovate the GCIO, the DGP, the innovation frameworks, and you in the municipalities. So the idea of that entity was exchange best practices, drive cutting edge research. And we are very excited at the launch of this thing. This was launched this very year in January. And there was a lot of support from the leadership of Dubai for putting this thing together. So I want to now just talk about some examples of what's going on around the world. This is really exciting, and I'm going to give you some examples of Colombia, examples of Brazil, Canada, again, the Dubai government, you already mentioned about the GP, and then, of course, what's going on in Hong Kong and the US. Few snapshots just to let you know. In Colombia, the government recognizes that if you want to drive economic growth, the economic growth of any country is actually in the small, medium-sized enterprises, the small businesses that you see across Dubai, in the Middle East, or wherever. Those small businesses, if they grow to become 10 times bigger, create jobs, they create economic growth. And so the Ministry of Science and Technology of Colombia came and partnered with Jimmy and says, can you help us create an innovation management system for small companies and medium-sized companies to be able to accelerate the growth strategies, accelerate their thinking about innovation, because they are only thinking about what they're doing yesterday and today, but they have no plan for tomorrow. And if we can get small businesses to have a plan for tomorrow, they might start thinking about getting bigger, hiring, and driving growth. This program was really, really interesting. Through this program, we're going to take about almost 1,000 SMEs, small, medium-sized companies, through an accelerated program where we teach them about the innovation management system, but we also pilot with them how to generate an idea for growth and build that capability in the people through the process. And here's the important part I want to make sure as we talk about knowledge. Knowledge, it's easy to read a book, but that does not make you an expert. It's easy to talk to an expert about something, but that does not make you an expert. It's like riding a bicycle. You can't read a book and ride a bicycle. You can't listen to an expert and ride a bicycle. There's only one way to learn to ride a bicycle. You have to get on the bicycle. And so all these programs are realized very quickly, really impart knowledge and make the knowledge yours. You must give them projects to work on, real projects and real experiences. And so every one of these programs which we develop, the teams that are getting trained were forced or encouraged to actually build solutions, new innovation ideas, implement them, and make it real. In the process of doing this, in the last 4 or 5 years, 816 companies were built or were supported with innovation systems. Partnerships were formed around these companies. Over $195 million of new revenue was generated in these very small businesses, and thousands of people got certified, and therefore a common language, a common framework begins to become part of the Colombia ecosystem of small, medium-sized enterprises. That was in Colombia. It was very exciting to be part of the program and drive this change at such a big scale. More recently in Brazil, we were invited by the government of Brazil, again saying, hey, we have got great people in Brazil. We're a country like the United States. We've got the same sort of people, and yet we have not been able to achieve the same sort of economic growth that the United States enjoys. Big country, big population, smart people, what's wrong? And so they said, what should we do? And we came up with a program that says, let's train just the CEOs, the leaders only. Let's take 2,000 leaders of businesses, and we will put them through a training program over 8 weeks. And in that program, we'll make them develop the definition of ethics, the definition of leadership tenets, and then basically say, what's your big vision for growth? What is the platforms and portfolios you want to grow? What projects do you want to work on? Let's get them organized and then give them an action plan and a peer review to check in on them on a regular basis. 2,000 people across the country. And if you can get even 10% of those guys to go really embrace innovation and think differently, you can imagine Brazil is going to be firing on all cylinders of what they're going to be doing. So that's our friends in Brazil. The program has been put together. 2,000 people are getting trained. And inside that, you're training trainers also. So not only do you provide the curriculum on what they have to learn for the knowledge, you have to build the capacity to distribute it. Trainers are developed, and 2,000 excited CEOs with very clear growth plans have been created for them. It's called the Líderes para o Brasil. And expect Brazil to start making a lot of noise in the next 3 to 5 years as the CEOs begin to embrace innovation and do more with it. In Canada, another small story, they said, forget the leaders and the CEOs to get our future to become the future. They said, our future is our kids. And you know kids, our kids are creative. Our kids are brilliant. Your kids are brilliant. They're creative. But then what happens? We send them to school. And we as parents, we say, careful, be a good boy, be a good girl. And in the process of saying be a good boy, be a good girl, what we're really saying is follow the rules, follow the rules. And by the time they graduate out of high school into college, they become obedient, good citizens of our society, never causing disruptions. But then we ask them to innovate. And how can somebody who begins to get trained on following the rules now has to think about breaking the rules, has to think about making the rules? So what the Smart Waterloo region of Canada is doing is they're saying in our school system, we're talking about 1 million students, we want these kids not to lose that curiosity, not to lose that inquisitiveness, not to lose the ability to see a problem and the ability to solve a problem. Can we create a program for them together? And this is a very exciting program because it starts with our human talent. Very talented we're going to bring into our organizations, and are we paying attention to that? This program has been made simpler. The problems these kids work on are not the same problems as you would work on. The way they work on is the tools that they have at hand. So they do brainstorming, but the brainstorming is done at the dinner table with dad, mom, and the kids, or they do it through social media. And they ask their friends, what do you guys think? They use different tools for crowdsourcing, different tools for workshops, but they are able to do the same things in how to generate ideas, how to implement. Again, fantastic stuff, easy, but this is really inspiring for me that if we can touch 1 million students, what is the creativity we are going to unleash to be able to solve any problem on the planet? In Hong Kong, the Hong Kong government said, we have got money and we want our population to get smart, not just the government entities, but our population. And through their partner, the Hong Kong Innovation Management Institute, which is in Hong Kong, they are basically driving these things in Hong Kong. And the idea over here is very simple. Let's get government accreditation. Let's get government to support the financing of the training and subsidize the training. So now anybody can sign up for it in partnership with the 2 or 3 universities which are in Hong Kong. City University, the Hong Kong University are all part of the GME collaborative network to basically deploy and distribute the knowledge that is going to help their individuals and their small businesses and the big companies do some amazing things. So very, very interesting in terms of what Hong Kong is doing. And then ultimately, I wanted to share one last story in the United States. The United States had a really, really tough time with the pandemic. The pandemic put a lot of pressure on our small businesses, but the small businesses which suffer the most on innovation, our community which suffers the most, is the community that has been kind of taken advantage of for the last 300 years. Our Black community was brought into the United States. They were not allowed to have any rights to have property. They were not able to get bank loans till about 1970. They were not able to get loans until maybe about 20 years ago. And so they don't have the same amount of money in the bank account as the non-Black population. And therefore, during the pandemic, if you had a business, you didn't get customers, you had to pay expenses, eventually your business didn't have enough money left because it was only the money in your bank account that you'd pay for your business. And so we saw Black-owned businesses shutting down left and right. So we partnered with LISC. LISC is an organization across the United States which is trying to close the wealth gap. How do we get the wealth of white people and Black people to be almost the same? If we do that, our society will be more equal. And so we partnered with them and said, what can we do? And we created an accelerator with them and say, how do we show them how to identify problems during the pandemic? How do we find new solutions, digital or whatever? And through that accelerator, we have already worked with over about 100 to 200 companies on this particular program. And this number of companies are going to go to about 2,000 with a very focused, very simple. The past injustices can be fixed if we can drive some economic growth and we can help these businesses get bigger faster. And as a result, they'll hire more people, pay more people to do those things. I wanted to share the stories with you because I believe innovation is the future. I believe innovation is hard, but I believe that if we can start from the bottom with high school kids, I believe if we start from the top with CEOs. And so as I wrap this talk up, I want to just basically give you some guidance as we talk about what's next in Innovation 4.0. I think we got to think a little bit more complete in how we tackle the problem. We need to make, hello? Okay, thank you. So we just need to look at the leadership over here and we see the leaders, what they're doing, and we need to give them training. We need to see training at the management level and make sure that they understand what's going on. So our common language, common framework can be exchanged. And ultimately, the organization must be trained horizontally, and then we must think of our ecosystem, whether it's our future employees, suppliers, and partners. If we can think of this as a full ecosystem play, and which is exactly where the Dubai municipality is going next, we should be able to create a very powerful innovation system. So with that, I'm going to stop presenting, and I want to thank everybody for listening, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Hitendra. I can't believe it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You've got so much energy there. And you made a comment about feeling a little bit old after being introduced, but my God, I wish I had the energy you do.
Peter, I can't hear you.
Oh. Hello? Hi, Hitendra. Thank you very much for an amazing, inspiring presentation. Unbelievable energy you have at 2 o'clock in the morning. I would like to shift over to Soha, my co-host here, and she's got some questions that have been posed from the audience, and she'll share them with you.
Thank you, Hitendra, very much. Very interesting and very important and significant topic, which is actually the partnership between public and private sectors. Accordingly, we do have a long list of questions where we're going to take some due to the time. The first one is that, in context of the partnership between public and private sectors, what are the key critical success factors that if missing, this will not go, this will not work? So it's not only about the key success factors, but the main thing that should be there, and if it's not there, this partnership will not work.
It's very simple. We need to make sure we have alignment around objectives and goals and time horizons and what we have to do. So public organizations sometimes move slower because they are working on different cycles and different speeds. Universities work at graduation levels, at student speeds of what they do. And companies move at a different speed. So you got to make sure that alignment of speed of outcomes that you're trying to do are first lined up. This is important. The second part over here is the recognition that we are 1 + 1 is 3. If 1 + 1 is 3 and you believe on that, then you are certainly going to partner and respect them versus saying, what do they know? There's a mindset called win-win inside the mindset, and the trust and respect for each other, because it's the ecosystem that is more powerful. But most people don't get trained in that. We get trained to look at me, look how hard I'm working. And we're not talking about sharing and sharing successes. So this alignment, commitment, key success factors are really embracing each other, understanding the other person's win-win, getting in their shoes is important. And then from there, come up with a solution that says, both of you say, I like it, I can work for me. But start by building that trust and respect with a common goal, common objective that makes sense to both of you. Win-win is the name of the game.
Thank you very much. And this will take us actually to the other related question, which is from the government perspective. Governments tend to be, or the perception that they are just bureaucratic and still they have a different way of working than the private sector. So the main challenges in convincing the government mindset towards the importance of participation with the private sector.
Yeah, so that's a good point. There's something about I go to 5 job and I can leave and I don't get fired for it. And those are kind of stereotypes we have for government jobs. And you don't have the same sort of mindset in private companies where you really have to show excellence all the time. But I think people are humans, and humans want to do amazing things. Every one of us wants to go home and tell our kids what cool things we're working on, or tell stories to your grandkids. So even in the United States, for example, you have seen government entities get excited. NASA is really a government entity. But how do you set them to get excited? Is setting goals like let's put a man on the moon, Mars, and who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want to do that? I want to work on that project, right? So there's something about inspiring leadership within the government that's important, which inspires the change. You guys are lucky. The Dubai government, Sheikh Mohammed has certainly set the rules of saying, we don't want to be number 1 or number 2 or number 3. We want to be number 1. That's a beautiful statement that every leader of your organization can also say. Now, once you set that up, it basically says 2 things very clearly. 1, whatever we did yesterday will not get us to today. And whatever we're doing today will certainly fail us tomorrow, right? To be number 1, you have to change, right? The second thing is you need to look around and go find what other people are doing. So get out of your office, travel the world, go look at the internet, whatever, but find things that are different. So that's when the government side is really inspired this thing of making people excited, telling them that they can create a new future, and you can take control of your future as you do this. Who doesn't want to be part of that? Private companies do a good job on that. They could do better. And governments don't do a good job on that because sometimes it's just people are rotating through roles and responsibilities, and they're just there for 1 year and moving on to the next role. Let's get these guys to think about that they have the opportunity to create a story to tell their grandkids. Who wouldn't want that? A whole organization to support you to do this. Why not?
Yeah, great. So they should be actually objective oriented, know that they want to reach this objective. Accordingly, whatever ways that others succeeded or whatever ways they think it will help them to progress, they have to take it, and they have to take some risks and to have some kind of change in the mindset and thinking. Thank you very much. Last question, actually, which is very interesting. Do you have any kind of maturity level competition or assessment between different governments, not organizations, but across the government, say UK government, the Indian government, and UAE government, like that?
It's a good question. And I want to highlight the problem with indexes that have been created right now. They're mainly country level. They are not city level. So this is where we have to make sure we got to compare apples to apples. So how can a country like Finland or New Zealand be seen as much more innovative than a country like the United States? Well, the reason is the United States has got 50 cities. We've got cities in Alabama, we've got cities in Mississippi, which are not very strong, but we've got cities in Boston and Silicon Valley, which have to be as good as the best city in Singapore or anywhere else, right? So we need to compare apples to apples, is the first thing. And one of the conversations we had with the Dubai government excellence program is exactly that. Can we create the city innovation index and compare cities to each other And if you can hold that index, like the country index, but the government level of a city. Dubai, to a large extent, is a country, is a kingdom, but it really is also a city. We must compare Dubai to Singapore, and Singapore to Boston, and Boston to Hong Kong, and that government system. And I think the plan is there, the discussions are in play to actually create something and host it and manage it through Dubai to make it happen. And when we make that happen, I think it's going to be wonderful, because now we can compare apples to apples, and we can learn best practices from the right sort of things, and we should be much better at what we're trying to do. But the correct answer on this one is no, there is none out there. And if anybody wants to help us do this, join us just to make it happen, because we are open, we are collaborative, and innovation happens because together we can.
Tendra, thank you very much. And audience, thank you. And Soha, thank you. Really, what a great way to start this conference today. So really a lot of very interesting ideas and thoughts expressed. Again, Hitendra, I know you probably want to get to bed now, get some sleep, and we'll carry on. If you can stick around, we'd love to have your energy with us for the rest of the day. We're going to move to our first break, and we'll see you in 15 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Dubai, known as the city of the future. A spirit of creativity and innovation can be found in the city's governance and across every sector of its diversified economy. Its ambitions are underlined with a raft of futuristic long-term strategies adopting technologies such as AI, blockchain, 3D printing and the Internet of Things, and the Emirate nurtures an ecosystem where creators and innovators are inspired and enabled to embrace new ideas and adopt technologies to build a sustainable blueprint for modern cities. Dubai is a global hub for food logistics and handles the bulk of the 100 billion dirham food trade economy in the United Arab Emirates. Its geographical location, ports and know-how enables it to efficiently facilitate food trade across the region. A hub for global events and a cultural melting pot, Dubai's food businesses cater to more than 30 million people annually from over 200 countries. Dubai Municipality has considerable responsibility to ensure the safety of food, and the futuristic vision of its leadership ensures safe, sustainable, healthy and affordable food for all. Dubai Municipality integrates human resources with technology to stay ahead of the diverse and ever-growing demands of both consumers and the food industry, constantly researching and investing in advancements in food-related technologies. As a result of the collaborative efforts with the Dubai Economic and Tourism Department and Dubai Digital Authority, the Food Safety Department is able to provide instant plan approvals to new food businesses. A process that could take days or weeks can be completed in less than an hour through the Invest in Dubai platform. Operators of food businesses can obtain food permits to participate in events instantly through the Food Watch platform, demonstrate compliance to food safety regulations throughout the event using the self-reporting system. They need to be trained and educated in food safety to ensure that the consumers and the food they offer are always protected. In partnership with the Dubai Economic and Tourism Department, Dubai Municipality will be launching the world's first ever digital training and engagement platform to be run by a government. By delivering food safety knowledge anytime, anywhere, the platform aims to encourage and deliver behavioral outcomes essential to promote a good food safety culture. Creating a sustainable food system requires faster clearance of food shipments. The Food Safety Department anticipates that food importers handling over 50% of food imported to Dubai will benefit from the Green Channel initiative, where food safety and quality of imported foods will be ensured through a wide range of measures, from monitoring of the preventative measures at the food source to AI-driven decision-making. We envisage Dubai with integrated systems between government entities that promotes a business environment that nurtures growth and sustainability, touching the lives of everyone.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your break, and I'm looking forward to introducing our next speaker for the session, David Gertine. He is the founder and director of Gertine Knowledge, and he lives in Fleet, England. So David Gertine is the founder of Gertine Knowledge and the creator of the Knowledge Cafe. As a member of humanity, his role in life is to help ensure the survival of our global civilization and build a better world. He is currently researching and writing an online book on conversational leadership, in which the transformational power of conversation is more fully applied and which sees leadership as a practice rather than a position. His community forums, known as Knowledge Cafes, are David's means of bringing attention to the global problems we face, encouraging people to take action, and accelerating what he believes to be an emergent age of reason or enlightenment. The title of his presentation is Delivering Innovation Through Conversation. Welcome, David.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Although it's morning here in the UK, I guess it's just turned afternoon there in the UAE. So, as Peter just explained, the theme of my talk is delivering innovation through conversation. Those of you who do know me and know my cafes will find that, or at least this topic of a little surprise. Do you recognize this skyline? It's not quite as grand as Dubai, but I think it's pretty impressive. Nevertheless, it's the city of London there in the background. And you can see St. Paul's Cathedral just peeking in on the left. Now, it's one of the premier financial centers of the world, along with Wall Street in New York, Frankfurt, and Tokyo. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. But have you ever wondered for one moment how it all started? It had a very simple beginning. It started in this alleyway, or actually it started in a churchyard just off this alleyway. St. Michael's Church, just a few hundred yards from the site of the modern day Bank of England. This is the church. And if you walk down that alleyway today, and I've done this, my wife works in the city, and I love the city, and I'll often wander around. There's a lot of history there. If you wander down that alleyway, you will find this plaque. Here stood the first London coffee house at the sign of Pasquale Rosé's head, 1652. Yes, actually, it wasn't a coffee shop; it was a coffee stall, and it was set up by Pasquale Rosé, who was a Greek. And this was the first coffee stall, the first coffee house, first coffee shop, if you will, in England, in London, in 1652. And coffee seemed or proved to be extremely popular. In the city alone, some 10 years later, there were 80 coffee houses. But by the start of the 18th century, that number had grown to over 500 in the city alone, and even more in the Greater London area. Now, interestingly, this was the time of the Age of Reason, the so-called Age of Reason, often better known as the Enlightenment. It was a time of conversation, of political and philosophical discourse. And the whole center of the Enlightenment was the idea that, in some ways for the first time, that reason was seen as the primary source of knowledge. And a lot of innovation and new ideas, not just scientific ones, but societal ones, came out of the Enlightenment. And the coffee houses played a big role in that Age of Reason. And some of the ideas were ideas that we take for granted today, such as liberty and freedom, progress and tolerance. And I've spent a little bit of time this last year or two sort of studying the history of knowledge, going back to a major cognitive revolution that took place some 50,000 years ago, where language was born. And I can't help but feel that this Age of Reason in the 17th and 18th century was the major step forward in knowledge management, if you will, in the history of humankind. Now, a little bit more about these coffee houses. They're often called the Enlightenment coffee houses, because they took place at the time of the Enlightenment. And here's a little painting of one here. They were frequented only by men, I'm sorry to say, and certainly the ones in the city were frequented by businessmen. They were often known as penny universities. You could pay a penny to enter. You got your cup of coffee, and you got to engage in a lot of interesting conversation and a lot of learning through those conversations with like-minded people. Now, if you wander around the city today, which, as I say, I have, I took all these photos, you will find, well, you won't find the coffee houses there today. You might find a Starbucks or two, but you won't find any of the old coffee houses. But you will find the plaques that remind you where they once stood. So Jonathan's coffee house here, the principal meeting place of the city's stockbrokers, yes, founded in 1680. But the one that interests me is Lloyd's Coffee House, formed in 1691 by Edward Lloyd. And here's a little, I guess, drawing, painting of what Lloyd's Coffee House might have looked like back then. It was a meeting place for merchants, for sea captains, for bankers, and it was a very, this was really where the Monday financial centre started. One of the innovations of the coffee house was marine insurance. This is where the insurance industry first started, and that's what the coffee house looked like then, or may well have looked like then. I wonder if you know what the coffee house, Lloyd's Coffee House, looks like today. It looks just a little different. This is Lloyd's of London. It's the world's largest insurance and reinsurance market, and it started in a coffee house some 300 years ago. And I'm sure somewhere in that building, you can probably get a good cup of coffee. I've not actually visited it, but maybe somewhere there you could get your coffee. So that's Lloyd's of London, that came from very humble beginning. And but it wasn't just, the coffee houses weren't just in the city, and a lot of institutions, a lot of modern day institutions that still survive, you will find in London. The Royal Society, London Stock Exchange, the auction houses of Sotheby's and Christie's, and also the coffee houses in some way were the first, for people involved in knowledge management today, they were the first communities of practice, if you will. So in the city, it was merchants, bankers, and sea captains. Just a little bit further west along the Strand, near the law courts in London, the coffee houses were for lawyers. Go a little bit further west still to Covent Garden, and the coffee houses were for actors. And then to Westminster and St. James, you had coffee houses for politicians. So interestingly, these were the first communities of practice, and a lot of innovation came out of the conversations in these coffee houses. I find this just a fascinating period of history, and I love it because it's right on my doorstep. Now, if we cross the Channel to France and leave these beautiful white cliffs of Dover behind, we find, again, in the 17th and 18th century, we find the salons of Paris. And these were very different conversational spaces, if you will, to the cafes of London. I think you can see that here in this painting of one of the salons. And these salons didn't just flourish in Paris, but also in the rest of Europe, and particularly Vienna. They were social gatherings, convened, if you will, by prominent women known as salonières, and they convened them in their private homes. And you can see here they must have been quite well-to-do. But here, unlike London, they brought men and women together in conversation, in intellectual conversation, again, in the pursuit of knowledge. And interestingly here, the women were the creators of these, the women were the innovators, and they had a lot of say in who they invited to their conversations and what was talked about, and how those salons were run. So again, very interesting conversational spaces in Paris in the 17th and 18th centuries. And a lot of the Enlightenment thinkers took part in those salons, names that you will instantly recognize if you've got even a vague interest in philosophy. I love this portrait of John Locke here, very, very striking man. But you'll recognize some of the other philosophers here, such as Thomas Hobbes and Descartes and Voltaire. But also there were a lot of figures from the scientific revolution that was going on at about the same time. And names like Galileo Leibniz and Kepler. So again, this was the Enlightenment was a tremendous period of innovation, and it was fundamentally driven here by the conversations of the London coffee houses and the salons of Paris. Now let's cross a much wider, broader stretch of water. This is the Atlantic Ocean, and at about the same time, we're going to head over to the colonies, to colonial America, and there we will find Benjamin Franklin. And I hope Benjamin Franklin doesn't need any introduction. He was one of the founding fathers of modern day America, played a big hand in writing the Constitution. And in 1727, he was a mere lad. He was 21 years old, and he created a conversational society. He created a conversational club to bring a small group of people together, a small group of men together, to talk about self-improvement and also how to improve their local community. And again, he seems to be a little bit of a knowledge manager in many ways. He knew something about cognitive diversity. The initial 12 members of his club were from diverse backgrounds: mathematician, a shoemaker, a surveyor, a cabinet maker, a merchant, and supposedly even a runaway student from Oxford, which I find quite interesting. So, quite a rich mix, quite an eclectic mix of people. To become a member of the club, you had to agree 5 pledges. You had to pledge 5 things, and these pledges were really important, I think, to ensure the quality of the conversation. And I just want to go through them briefly because I think they're really important. And as you can see, they're written in slightly old-fashioned language. So, have you any particular disrespect to any present members? And clearly the answer to that was no, I don't. So he wanted people to respect each other. He felt that to have good conversations, respect was important. Do you sincerely declare that you love humanity, regardless of people's profession or religion? Clearly the answer to that was, I do. And then, do you think any person should be harmed, body, name, or goods, simply for their opinion or their way of worship? Again, the answer was no. And the last one, the one I like the most, do you love truth? Do you love truth's sake? And will you endeavor impartially to find and receive it yourself and communicate it to others? It's worth just dwelling on that for a moment. So this was all about the pursuit of truth. Yes. Looking for it, communicating it. Of course, the answer to that was yes as well. So I really rather like these 4 fundamental pledges, which in many ways were about creating psychological safety for the conversation so people could speak up and be themselves. Now, he used 24 questions to stimulate the conversations. And although I've got all 24 here, I just want to pick on 3 of them that I think maybe the more powerful ones. So the one here: do you know of any deserving young beginner lately set up, whom it lies in the power of the junto any way to encourage? So he was looking for the young entrepreneurs that had just started their organizations, their companies, and saying, how can we encourage them? How can we help them? So again, I think a really interesting question. You can imagine the conversations that came from that. Say he was a bit of a KMer, a knowledge, and he knew a little bit about knowledge management. Familiar clearly with the power of storytelling. So, what new story have you lately heard agreeable for telling in conversation? Yeah, and you can see some of the other questions here. I'll just pause for a second to let you read 1 or 2. And the last set, and the very last question: He knew something about quality as well and about continuous improvement. Do you see anything amiss in the present customs or proceedings of the junto which might be amended, which might be improved? Yes. So 24 really interesting, provocative questions to stimulate the conversations in his club. Now, a little bit like the coffee houses of London, I think more amazingly, this one little club in Philadelphia, a tremendous amount of innovation came from this club. The first volunteer fire company, as you can see from the plaque here, I'll let you read that yourselves. The University of Pennsylvania, volunteer militia, Pennsylvania Hospital, these all had their roots in the Junto Club. The one I like the most is the first lending library, the Library Company of Philadelphia. When these men came together in a house once a week to have their conversations, they wanted to share their books. Now, books were very expensive in those days and had to be literally shipped in from England. And so each member only had one or two books. They put a room aside in which they pooled their books so they could read, they could borrow each other's books. And that started out just lending the books amongst themselves, but later they started to lend them to the public. So this was the root of the first lending library in the world, and it came out of Benjamin Franklin's Junto Club. So again, an amazing little piece of history. So kind of just drawing a little bit too close here in a moment. I've now come back to England. It's a sort of little trip through history here. Come back to England, come back to modern day. Hopefully you'll recognize Trafalgar Square. 20 years ago, this year, I started my first knowledge cafe, bringing people together to have conversations on the Strand here, Strand Palace Hotel, my first cafe, 15th of September, 2002. And I'm going to have a big party later in the year. I'm not going to go into detail about the cafe, but the cafe is fundamentally resolves around conversation. It's using conversation for a number of, I think, very powerful aims. So I've listed them here, like learning from each other, sharing ideas, sense making sense of a situation, getting a deeper understanding of the situation before making decisions, exploring possibilities, generating new ideas. And one of the things I particularly like about any conversation, regardless of the topic, conversation helps connect people, build and improve relationships in an organizational sense, even a societal sense. It tends to break down organizational silos and polarization. And in general, it improves trust and engagement. And I've included this little video clip here because I really do love it. It's of a cafe I ran, again, some 10 years ago at the RSA in London. And what I like is you realize watching it is that we don't just communicate through our voices, we communicate through our bodies. Just watch people's body language, especially the use of our hands. Okay, right. If you're interested in the salons or the coffee houses or Benjamin Franklin's Junto Club, go take a look at this book from Stephen Johnson, Where Good Ideas Come From, The Natural History of Innovation. And in that book, he says this, and I'll just read this out. The great driver of scientific and technological innovation has been the historic increase in connectivity and our ability to reach out and exchange ideas with people. This has been the primary engine of innovation for the last 500 years. Yeah, that's worth reflecting on. It's been the historic increase in connectivity. And in the book, he says, we need to create spaces where ideas can mingle and swap and create new forms. I really love that concept. Create spaces. So, the coffee houses of London, the salons of Paris, Benjamin Franklin's Junto Club. These were spaces, these were conversational spaces where ideas can mingle and swap and create new forms. And to my mind, it's conversation that leads us from knowledge to innovation. Now, just drawing to a close now, the whole purpose of this talk is to sow a seed in your minds. The whole point about the coffee houses, the salons, and in particular, Benjamin Franklin's Junto Club, is that anybody can start a conversational club, a conversational society of some form. Now, I did it 20 years ago with the cafe. The great thing about it, you don't need permission, you don't need any fancy tools, there were no sophisticated techniques. All my cafes I've ever run, both face-to-face or on Zoom, have cost me nothing. I've always found like-minded people who have been prepared, say in London, to offer me a room to run the cafes. So you have it in your ability, each and every single one of you, to create your own conversational club. In Stephen's words, to create spaces, to create conversational spaces where ideas can mingle and swap and create new forms, create new ideas. Yeah. So I will stop there. If you want to know a little bit more about any of this and about conversation in general, go take a look at my website, conversationalleadership.net. Thank you.
David, thank you very much. You know what I'm really loving about this conference so far is that we're shifting gears, we're ramping up, you know, with different presentation styles, different information, and it's creating a really nice environment for us. The other thing is, now I know what I've been buying all this coffee when I'm at Expo for. I've got coffee from about 6 different countries. It seems like I'm getting ready for my own cafe soon. So
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll pass it over to Soha. Soha, what sort of comments and questions have we gotten from the audience?
Thank you very much, Peter. David, it was really awesome presentation. And we all know when it comes to David Gertin, we're here talking about the driver behind knowledge and innovation, the human power, the connectedness, the conversation and sharing, and where synergy is. Accordingly, we do have a list of questions, and we will start by the first one, and I hope we have time to cover all of such questions that have reached us. First of all, we do have a question related to the age group. They said that digital now era that we are living in is more into people with his own mobile, that the people will be in isolation, start to self-learning and avoid the real conversation part. And it is more dominated across the younger age. However, for the age group, older age group, they do feel that still conversation is important, but it is not there for the younger due to the environment that they were raised to. So how can we bridge such gap?
I mean, that's an interesting question. And yeah, I was running my knowledge cafes face to face all around the world for, I don't know, 18 years. Actually about 15 years. And then Zoom came along, this technology we're using now came along. And I realized very quickly that I could run those cafes online through Zoom. And so I've been doing that long before COVID. And you know, we're having a conversation here in a way with this conference through the technology. And I'm sure there's many people coming in on their mobile phones or mobile devices. And there are other conversational, you know, applications or places on the web where you can do this digitally. You know, applications like Meetup, where anybody can create their own meeting space in Meetup and invite people along to have conversations, either face to face, but increasingly on Zoom, to talk about whatever they wish. Some people, one of the new mobile phone apps that seems to be very popular is something called, what's it called? I forgot the name of it now. is it called Coffee House? I've forgotten the name. It's a conversational app. It's called Clubhouse. And it's a conversational app where you can go in and you can initiate your own conversations, just voice only, no video, and that seems to be very popular amongst young people. So I'm not so sure. Maybe young people are less inclined to talk face to face, especially in this sort of time of COVID. Though I'm not totally convinced of that. I mean, the one thing I've learned about people in general, regardless of age, is that they love to engage in conversation. Sometimes it might just be chit chat. Other times it's much more, it goes a lot deeper, and it can be done face to face. Increasingly, it can be done online. So I'm not so sure it's such a big problem.
Yeah, I do agree as well. We have here a question and a comment, actually, related to the conversation. Some organizations, when they hear the word conversation, they do think that it is something out of the scope and it should be replaced by meetings, it should be replaced by brainstorming sessions, but the conversation and the informal way of discussing and sharing without such protocols. So what do you think, or what can you tell for such organizations? Because they feel that the significance of the conversation is not as much, or is not that important, or it is wasting time, as he said.
But they often think it as wasting time. In all my experience, and I think if anyone seriously reflects on this, some of the best conversations are the conversations, in say an organizational setting, are the conversations you have over lunch, conversations you have over coffee, conversations you have at the water cooler, conversations you have walking down the corridor to the meeting, the conversations you have walking away from the meeting, yes, the conversations you have in the meeting room before the actual meeting starts. There's a lot of informal conversation that goes on, and often that's where the conversation's not being controlled. The problem with so many meetings and so many formal events, there's usually a manager, or there's a facilitator, there's somebody trying to control the conversation. And I hope every one of you can relate to this, where you're in such a meeting, you're in such a so-called conversation, someone's controlling it, and you have got some really important things, maybe some tremendous ideas you want to share, and you're not allowed to because of the structure of the event, and you're closed down. I mean, the real, seems to me, and it's certainly true in my experience, that my best ideas and my best thinking comes to a conversation where there are no rules, where the conversation can go where the conversation wants to go. This is where the kind of real creativity comes in. I get a little bit of an idea, a little thought, and I want to share it with somebody else. And I say, hey, I've been thinking about this. What do you think of this? And they say, and they say, yeah, but maybe not, and then you get into that conversation. You just need an opportunity, an informality, to have those conversations and engage in those conversations. And I'd say to anybody who's maybe been a little bit inspired to start their own conversational club of any sort, if you can't do it formally within your organization, do it in the evening, do it at lunchtime, do it out of hours. There's nothing to stop you having innovative conversations.
Can I just jump in? Because as you're talking, David, I was feeling that you probably have a lot of conversations just with yourself.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is actually an interesting area too, that you don't actually, if you cut off from a meeting, when you wake up in the morning, you can have some great conversations and ideas can come that way.
I mean, one of the things I'll often do is, I'll pretend I'm presenting in my head. I pretend I'm presenting at a conference like this, and in my head I will ask myself the most difficult questions I can possibly ask myself inside my head, and then try to reply to them. And that's an incredible thinking tool. It enables you to really question some of your own beliefs. And I think that's something we need to be open to, both inside our own heads and in conversation, is to be able to question the things that maybe we've believed. And I'm not talking about religious belief. I'm talking about, it could be marketing, it could be scientific, it could be engineering. So maybe question some of the most fundamental beliefs that we have about the way the world works, because that's again where the innovation comes from.
We have here another good question from the word that you have said, uncontrolled conversation or the free conversation. They're saying how to ensure a balance between having a free conversations where new ideas that you did not even plan to have, and between having an objectives and time limits that you have to solve this problem. Even though some ideas, if you leave the conversation open, you might be having different ideas, maybe in different topics. So how to make such balance, especially in workplace?
Yeah, it's very difficult because there's always a time limit. The one thing to remember, about conversation, about my cafes, is they're not everything. That the cafe concept of like this free flow of conversation is tremendous for generating ideas, but it's not necessarily particularly good for making decisions. So it's recognizing what the cafe is good at and what it's not so good at. So the cafe can be, so let's say you've got a problem that you're looking to solve. Often you have everyone in the room, you're doing the brainstorming and you're doing the judgment and you're trying to make the decision at the same time. Some of the people in the room have already made up their minds what the solution should be. Others want to discuss it further. And it isn't terribly productive. If you take that meeting, say that decision-making meeting, and divide it into two, it could be the same day, could be with some time period between. And the first session is a cafe-style session where you say, look, this isn't about judging the ideas. So it's a little bit like brainstorming, but you're saying we're not going to judge the ideas here. We want to hear from everybody. This is a divergent conversation where we're trying to get a better understanding of the issue, maybe generate some ideas. And then having had that first meeting, you have a second meeting later where you say, okay, now we've spent some time better understanding the issue, generating some ideas. Now we have to make a decision. And now you go through a different process for decision making, which isn't a cafe. And again, the message here to people is, look, we can talk about this forever, but we need to make a decision at the end of today or at the end of this meeting. So it's recognizing the different conversational tools that you have and applying them appropriately. Yeah, does that make sense?
A lot actually. We have. You want to jump in, or I shall continue?
No, keep going.
Okay. So we have another question for the digitalization world that we are in. Definitely, yeah, we have moved from being having things in physical and in real to the virtual life. So what are the limitations that we are facing and what should be done, because we cannot avoid the virtual conversation anymore. Even if we don't like it, we like it or we don't like it, we will not be able to do that. So how can we adapt ourselves toward that and accept it first?
Again, this is an interesting question and one that keeps going around in my head as well. People so often say to me, and I find myself saying it as well, is that face-to-face conversations are better than virtual conversations. Yeah. And so someone will say that to me and I will say, well, why? And they will say, well, it's all to do with body language and close proximity and what have you. And I say, yeah, okay, I get that, intuitively, but what difference does it make? And it's very difficult to put your finger on the difference that it makes. And I've been involved now. I've run a lot of knowledge cafes online in Zoom. I have a lot of conversations with small groups on Zoom and one-to-one conversations. And I'm realizing that
Thank you. Sorry, I have to cut you off there. So how we've just about run out of time, but you touched on a very interesting topic just as you're finishing. And I'm wondering if there's one of those new technologies that are going to affect this age of reason is those in the family of metaverse. So this will be a really interesting area to explore. But thank you very much, David. That was really a very enlightening conversation. It was nice that it felt like a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And please keep it going. Yeah, keep the conversation going.
So we'll take a short break, but we'll be back during that break to have something where Soha and I will have a conversation based upon the comments that we've received in general over the past day and a half. So thanks again, David.
Okay. Thank you.
So hi, welcome back. I hope you had a quick coffee. What we're going to do is something a little bit different for this break, which I mentioned before, which is just get some of your thoughts that you've expressed over the past day and a half. And Soha's going to read one, and then we're going to have a conversation about it. And as we have time, we'll have more conversations about some of the different questions. So Soha, what was the first question that you'd like to pose that you and I can chat about?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. The first thought that came to us, which is innovation and how it is related to knowledge management and how it starts from creativity. So,
if you don't mind, can I
yeah,
start
sure.
with that?
Please.
Because creativity is something that's really close to my heart, because I not only work for Dubai Municipality as a scientist and advisor, I'm also an artist. And I've, over time, become more and more interested in art and creativity. And this is where I get a lot of my passion, a lot of my inspiration from. The challenge I've actually been facing is how to take those creative ideas and innovate them. In other words, to actually make them feasible and realistic and actually be useful somehow. But really at the heart of what I do is creativity. I really like this question because it's often something that can get lost in the process. We get so caught up in thinking about management systems, about terminology. We shape a management system with a whole bunch of boxes, which to me can limit creativity. I'm outside the box a lot. I don't know how I've managed to stay in government all this time, but I really like that question because to me, this is the heart of innovation. If you don't have the creativity, then you won't be able to innovate. And we've learned some ideas about knowledge cafes, for example, in terms of how those create new ideas. But I think that's why I started with the conversation with self. It's when the individual actually starts to have that idea germinate inside of them. It starts within you. And then to allow yourself to feel it, to express it, and then the innovation can happen. That's how I feel. I don't know, what do you think?
Do you think creativity has to be with chaotic people more? So I can tell you in another way, are you more chaotic than others?
I don't know if chaotic. I'm comfortable in chaos. I'm able to get my bearings in some way very easily, often. Trust is a huge element of who I am, and I noticed that this is a term that was used, or a word that was used by almost all our presenters, was trust. Another one was about sharing. So there's a sense of openness as well. And when a person is open, the world can be a little bit chaotic because things can come at you from all sorts of different directions, often unexpected angles. And if you're comfortable with that, then you start to experience the world in a different way. You start to see you start to come up with different ideas about how it works and possibly solutions. So one does have to be comfortable in chaos. Like, for example, what we've been experiencing the last 2 years with the pandemic. There's a lot of chaos there, but there's a lot of opportunity within that as well.
Yeah, and actually people should differentiate between being chaotic and being not organized and being responsible. Okay, you can be still organized in a way, but chaotic means that you can have your mind free. You refrain from the limits, because when you refrain from the limits, you will refrain from all the obstacles that can hinder your mind to think about it. So that's how I can see. I can be still organized in some aspects, but I can have some chaos, but I'm very unorganized or irresponsible because it's differently, and it is very not the same. It's actually something very different than being chaotic. I can see that.
You know, you used the word organized, and I was thinking about my desk in university. If anybody looked at my desk, even at the office, they're always telling me, clean your desk, Peter. And when we went to paperless, maybe I was a reason for that, because I had papers all over my desk. But I always knew where things were. And so when, for example, the pandemic hit, which created a lot of uncertainty and chaos, I was pretty comfortable with it, to be quite honest. And so again, it gets right back to that balance between chaos and responsibility, and whether one has an optimistic silver lining outlook or pessimistic. This is really important too, I feel, in terms of just creativity. And not having the fear of making mistakes. And this is where painting has really helped me a lot. I call it, it's abstract painting, or I actually call it intuitive painting. So anytime my paint hits the canvas, it's meant to be there. So I don't have to worry about mistakes. And that's so freeing.
Yeah, but you know at least where your things are, and you can easily reach out to them. So we can say that you are organized at that way.
Okay, thank you. Thank
But
you. You're so
creative.
kind.
Well, we can go to the second question. Actually, this question came from someone who's asking about innovation. Can lead to progress or regress. So how to identify the consequences and to differentiate between them.
What do you think, Soha?
Well,
That's interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting. But first of all, we have to step back and know what we mean by innovation, why we are using innovation. When I say that it can lead to progress or regress, then I have to use it. And I do not know what the results will be taking me. Innovation is a way to reach something. Innovation is not an end target that I have or I'm obliged to do it for the sake of the innovation per se. I have to decide how I will use different ways in order to reach my objective. As long as my objective is clear, as long as I can think of doing the things in new ways, because innovation does not mean that I have to go in a disruption mode and I have to cancel everything. No, innovation can have different levels, starting from incremental thing, which is if you're making minor changes that add value in the process, in the business model, in all of such things. This will lead you to kind of improvement that really has value, and we consider it as innovation. So if we believe that we are not in the right track, then we can say that, no, we will go with trial and error. And here, when you're doing something, yes, there is a chance to do it not in the right way. I don't want to say it's failed, but I will say you will learn that this is not the right way. So you can shift to another thing. But this does not mean that I will not innovate, and I will have to go to all the way along till I find that I am regressing and I'm not doing anything developing. And there is also a very important thing, which is the relation between innovation and agility, which means that if I'm doing the thing and I feel that there's a room for trial, for anything new, you have a room for trial. If the consequences are not that good, the signs showing that I'm not in the right direction, I have to be agile enough and I have to shift to another way. So we
That's
have
really
to control. Yeah.
Sorry, Soha. I was just thinking that in terms of the question in relation to regress, I was thinking how would that work, but I understand now. You've explained the process where the likelihood of something causing a negative impact is limited because of the system and the process used to manage that idea towards an innovation. But on the other hand, one can think that there are innovations which occur which actually maybe benefit some aspects of society or the environment, but actually may cause issues in other areas. One, for example, is synthetic fertilizers, which started, I think, during the First World War or Second World War. This was a great innovation and allowed a lot of food to be grown very quickly and well through the production and use of this fertilizer. But it turned out there are key micronutrients as well, which the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium doesn't contain, which affects soil fertility significantly and the quality of the food. So the innovation in one way is very helpful, but in a broader sense, there have been some impacts on soil and even on productivity in agriculture in general. So that's a really interesting question. So I guess it really gets down to some of the other aspects about the rigor of the innovation system that's used, the information and testing and data that's used to evaluate whether something is actually going to create the impacts in the full sense of the word or not.
Yeah, makes sense actually, and yeah, I do agree with that. But anything we're doing, we do have like a kind of risk management. At least we can anticipate what the wrong side will be. And anything, it has positives and negatives, but dealing with the expectations, because you're talking about on a bigger level, maybe something like the fertilizers and something on the government that will impose and have some impact on the environment. Yeah, of course, but such things, such major things should have kind of risk and assessment, and there should be some scenario planning for that. But maybe the way I have explained for the innovation in terms of how you're applying it in the organizations, and even on the major trends, it's very good to see the trials and to judge and to evaluate first, and to try to minimize the risk. But at the end of the day, everything has downsides. So,
Okay, so
we cannot,
In other words, there's trade-offs.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I guess it's knowing
Anything.
what those trade-offs are.
Yeah, anything, not only innovation. Anything has, you have to trade off between positives and negatives.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, we should go have a coffee and keep this conversation going. So because we're again out of time, we have to start thinking about the next session. And before we do, I just wanted to mention to you, because in creativity and innovation, there's ideas. So I mentioned this, I think, earlier, but we have a system in Dubai Municipality, and I believe that link will be put into the chat box right now. It's called eSuggest Dubai. So if you have an idea, anything that comes to mind, and you could be in any part of the world you want. So we look forward to input from the public, from the private sector. Get to that link, you'll see it in the page there, and use that. Put your suggestion in. Mention, let's say it's Dubai Municipality, put the topic line, so maybe your idea is about a new environmental development. Well, that'll come to our department. Even if you're living in Colombia, it'll come to our department, and we formally look at that and we will respond to you for your ideas. This is how open Dubai is, and UAE actually, to ideas and suggestions and innovation. So if you have some things that you would like to share with us, please do through the system and we will get back to you. So just thought I would mention that because it's a very important element of how Dubai government works here.
Yeah, great. And they can put in the title as well, Knowledge Connect, if they want something specifically for us, or they can just put it for Dubai Municipality if they do have any suggestion for Dubai Municipality for any of its businesses as well.
Okay. So check the chat box there, look for the link. If you can't find it, just get back to us. But I think, unless you have any other final comments, so what do you, any comments from you?
Actually, I've learned a lot through this conference, and I'd like to announce something that Knowledge Connect, yes, it was the conference that started yesterday, but the conversation is going on. We will be having sessions, a series of sessions after that. Maybe it will be single ones with our speakers, and we're also open up for anyone who wants to share with us, and we will be announcing it shortly. Maybe also we'll be having innovation coffee with, or innovation cafe with David Gertien. So we're planning to have different sessions. So please stay connected, and the aim is to stay connected with us, because this is where we want to create and build our knowledge and innovate together.
Great. Thanks very much, Soha. And anybody coming in Dubai, I've got a lot of coffee to share with people. So just let me know what country you want it from, and I'm happy to sit with you. So thanks very much. And now we're going to move into our panel discussion. And I'd like to introduce the panelists for you and the title of the conversation that they're about to have. So the panel discussion is called The Role of Gamification in Knowledge and Innovation Management and Its Impact on Organization Performance. So the panelists are Professor Carlos Francisco, professor and researcher at the University of Marília in Brazil. Mr. Cesar Mocarzal, managing director of SAI Partners, and Mr. Tobias Reach, head of product design, SAI Partners in the Middle East. Cesar will be the moderator for this panel, and we actually look forward to a very interesting conversation with them. I'll give you a bit more background about each one of our panelists now. So Dr. Carlos Francisco is a professor and researcher at the University of Marília, CEO of Connect Innovation Environment, CSO of MetaFuture, and Innovation Vice President of Chamber of Commerce Marília, São Paulo, Brazil. He has a PhD in information science with a focus on knowledge management and competitive intelligence in complex organizations from São Paulo University. Postdoctorate studies he took were in information science at the same university. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit about who SIA partners were, because I wasn't familiar with them, so I hope you don't mind if I share this as well. SIA Partners is a 20-year-old self-described next-generation global management company headquartered in France, but they have offices all over the world. They're actively supporting a wide array of sectors such as agriculture, banking, government, real estate, and technology. Their services focus on business transformation, AI-assisted design and innovation, with a CSR mindset, consulting for good. So, Cesar, who will be the moderator, is a managing director at SIA Partners in the Middle East and will be moderating the panel, as I said. He focuses on innovation management and strategy development and execution, primarily for the government sector. He has a master's degree in strategy and innovation from the University of Oxford and vast international work experience in Southeast Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Tobias is head of product design at SIA Partners. Tobias Rich is specialized in the phases of creative divergence and the mechanics of prototyping. Tobias supervises designers in their projects and carries out his own projects with the customized tools offered to design serious games and collaborative tools that support clients' colleagues. He has a master's degree in product design and innovation management. So once again, the panel discussion title, The Role of Gamification in Knowledge and Innovation Management and its Impact on Organization Performance. So welcome, panelists.
Okay, so Peter, Soha, thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you very much also for the opportunity to have us here in this panel. So Carlos, Tobias, and myself, we are going to talk about the gamification in its general terms. We're going to approach gamification and look at it from its impact perspective, but we are also going to look at gamification and the linkages that the gamification will have with knowledge and innovation management. So I'm very pleased to have Dr. Carlos and Tobias with me to give you just an idea of how we are going to run this panel today. So we're looking at gamification into three main perspectives. The first perspective, and this is the one that Carlos is going to take us through, is basically how we are achieving gamifications from a trigger perspective. So what is the trigger that would allow us as an organization to look into gamification? So, what are those challenges that we are going to address with gamification? We know that this may be a new tool, well, new probably to some organizations or to some countries, because we all know that gamification has been there for maybe more than a decade or even further than that. And we're going to cover this as a first part. Then Tobias is going to take us through the game design itself. So when we take the call and we took a decision internally that gamification is something important for us, how can we make this happen? How can we induce this into our knowledge and innovation systems? But at the end of the day, how can we make it a real thing that we're gonna establish in our organization and try it again and make it as a culture? And then the third part, where I'm gonna cover also a few points on that, is the impact of gamification. So how this whole process, when this is designed, executed and implemented, how this will come into results, what's the impact that we're gonna have on ourselves as an organization, but also on our people and on the scope that we are gonna cover. So this is a brief introduction from my side. I would like to give the floor first to Carlos, and I would like here to highlight that we're going to have few conversations building on the previous session from David. So this panel is going to be more conversational. We're going to talk on and we're going to cover a few topics here and a few things. So Carlos, I'm going to give you the floor here, and I'm going to start by asking you, historically, gamification has proven that it may be, for some organizations, a good way to enter in a new world, a new purpose for them. So can you tell us more? What's the history of gamification? How did it enter the world of innovation and organizations?
Yes, Cesar, thank you. First, thank you, you for your time today. Thank you for asking me to present today. Thank you, some Brazilian friends and the family that you woke up early to see me now. I appreciate that. And Cesar, thank you for the question. So I prepared a little presentation for share with the audience and explain more easy what I think about that. If possible, I would like share my screen with you, and I will talk about that.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead.
All right. Sure. All right. Thank you. So before talking about gamification, history about gamification, we need to understand the company, the organization, you know, because we are many internal environment components. We are many components on external environments, and these components working together get impact of the culture organization. So I use this image for explain better how gamification start part of the history of company. So the company has three components, principal components: culture, people, and process, you know, and these three components working together can be and provide impact for knowledge management and innovation management. So it's necessary to understand that people grow up with games, and the people have in games an opportunity for get fun, get engagement, and you know, it uses your creativity in the games. So the company needs put more close the people and the activities and process organization, because when the people grow up with games, it's okay, have fun, have engagement, motivation. But when the people go to the company, there are many boring activities, many more process, and the game can be very useful to create a new perspective organization. You know, it's a good point, because people can be change the culture, people can be change the process, and gamification provide this rules, goals, skills, abilities, feedbacks, creativity, engagement, motivation, and fun. So it's necessary to put games in the company, because the new generation asks to that, you know, and the gamification, it's a evolution about games. So here are three good definitions about gamification, but I will summarize that. So gamification, it's an opportunity for the company become board activities, board process, in good opportunity for the people, and across that it's possible engage people, motivation action, promote learning, and solve problem. And change behavior. So I had two. There are many opportunities to do gamification in your organization, but I will highlight drive innovation and obtaining knowledge. So of course, Tobias is very good about a framework in designing gamification, but I will highlight this conceptual framework because it is necessary to put the 4 group elements in the company to do gamification: game elements, users type, rewards, and motivation. And the other kind of elements give you more consistency for company achievements and socialization. So here is a simple example about gamification component, a little bit, you know, because when you apply gamification in your organization, you can do a competitive, but a collaborative situation there. And it's a story. People need fun. People need receive a challenge, and gamification give this for the company. You know, Cesar, it's a story because the games provide fun, and you grow up with fun, engagement, and motivation. You need have the same situation in the company for you feeling more comfortable. In special, this new generation, because the new generation grow up digital games. If the company don't put games in the activities and the process, probably will be a turnover, you know, about the people there, because the new generation asks for games in the company.
So if you allow me, Carlos, here to say a few words and to build on what you said. So it's quite clear, and I'm here talking the language also of the audience, that from its name, right, gamification is kind of applying the elements of games, of game playings. Now that the example that you mentioned about scoring, competitions, etc., to specific areas of activity, depending on the scope, depending on the organization, the companies, the products, the different services, and so on. One of the key questions here is, does the size of the organization matter? So if I'm a small organization, does gamification give me a good result? Is it good? Is it better for me to use gamification as a way to reach a specific goal? Or if I'm a large organization, let's say 2,000, 5,000 employees, would it be better to have gamification? I would like to hear from you also your perspective on that.
So the size of gamification not matter. I would like to share an example for you, because the bigger company has many resources to that, technology, people, and the other kind of research that. But the small company or medium company is able to do gamification. Of course, with less technology, of course, with less people. But this is a case study very, very good, because a commercial industrial association from Brazil, and I will talk about that. It's a Brazilian company in São Paulo State, Marília City. It's 86 years old, and it has 50 employees. It's a medium company, no? And its company is very traditional, and don't dirige any inclination to innovation. It's a normal company, that we have here in Brazil, you know, and it's a medium, the small and medium company. We work in that with people, culture, and process there, and use the gamification to do that, you know, because the people and culture, engagement, motivation, people and process, rules, goals, skill, habit, and feedback, and culture and process, fun and creativity. So we use it there with Google tools. It's not automatic process, but we do gamification in a small company. Of course, if you have technology specifically for gamification, it's good, very good. But you can use a creativity to do that. It's not a problem.
Okay, Carlos, to build on what you said, so it's quite clear. I believe that gamification is a tool to allow us to drive things forward. I like the word culture a lot. Today, as you may know, cultures are being driven also by purpose. So the triple P kind of approach is also something that companies and organizations are looking forward to achieve. So gamification, as you described it, is an enabler somehow to, you know, to processes, to people, to drive things forward, etc. Can we really tell, or can we really say that gamification succeeds or doesn't succeed or fails, or this doesn't apply to gamification?
Sure. I will continue to talk about that case study for talk about that. So I would like to share again at my screen. Yes, thank you. So it's a good example for gamification and the connected knowledge management, innovation management, because when we did a gamification in this company, there are many processes that don't work correctly, but these mistakes give for us an opportunity for understand better the environment, the people, the process, and the culture. So that information give more consistency for do the things the right way. So this is a good example because it's a situation very common in the company, you know, because the sales area, commercial area or sellers, they are individualistic sellers, and that don't share their knowledge. So it's a complex situation because you ask, oh, share your knowledge with your partnership, if you are older guys in the organization, but there are a block for that. So we put gamification there and sales pitch, you know, and after that share knowledge and create new knowledge, and we can do knowledge management. After that we put innovation management and create a new strategies to them. So after that we used a Google Classroom, Google Meet, and shit. See, it's a free tools for do gamification. It's not a pay. It's not a specifically technology. It's able to do gamification with free technologies. So after that, we create a new behavior, a new process, and a collaborative culture in sales department. So we use this framework to do that, and it's a good framework. It's a good opportunity. So after that, we had some results like sellers more engagement, create of groups among sellers to exchange information and knowledge, and the formal meeting happened. So it's show you that there we change a people behavior, a culture and process, you know, and after the gamification in company change the structure, so it's give the opportunity for the company has a new culture, behavior, people, and make it more easy knowledge management and innovation management. So after that, we change the structure. It's a new, here are two pictures about new places there after gamification, because it's necessary a new structure for the new culture, people, and process. So here a gaming place, you know, where the people exchange information and knowledge of the informal way. You know, it's a new perspective for them. A new meeting room. It's where the people exchange information and knowledge there, and more easy. And a new space about exchange information and knowledge with a bigger number of people. So it's the good place there, because we changed our workstation place, and the workstation have to the people opportunity for exchange information and exchange knowledge among them without block. And after that, the people are able to create innovation, creation knowledge every time, all the time, you know. So after the applied gamification, that some results very good there. Now organization has a portfolio with more than 40 services. The company became a national reference innovation in Brazil, and implementation AI in all structure, and create a startup accelerator there. And the most important thing there, change the name to Commercial and Innovation Association of Maria. It's show you how gamification change the company, you know. I think is this, Caesar, about your question. I tried to show a real example, because I think it's good, you know, because the people can see, oh, it's really happened, it's really working well. So it is.
Absolutely great, Carlos. Thank you very much for this intro and for this deep dive into the trigger of gamification and giving the case study. What I would like to build on what you finished with is the importance of bringing the informal part to the in a formal world, right? So gamification is quite informal. We really want to induce this change in mindset, how we are dealing with things, etc. So it's quite informal, bringing it to a formal word. You know, in some organizations they are quite rigid, quite stuck probably in silos, and so on. And from here, I'm going to use it as an entry point to Tobias' part. So bringing that informal aspect needs a lot of work. And what I would like to ask Tobias about, and these are the couple of points that are going to be covered by Tobias today, is okay, gamification is good. We want to introduce games in our organization. Tobias, please tell us more first on what you do, so people know that, you know, designers like you do exist and they are behind those great games that can be induced in organizations. And what I would like to ask you here is, going from the case study that Carlos just mentioned, what would be the practical examples on types of games we want to introduce there? And then we take the conversation forward. So Tobias, the floor is yours, please.
Then maybe to start and to explain my job, I'm game designer. So my job is to design new games to inspire on game mechanism I can implement to serve other purpose. And for example, the main subject I've been working on is training, because as Carlos said, it's a lever to engage people. And the progress we've made in cognitive science tells us that we really need to change the way we learn. And gamification could be a good way to change this, because it becomes informal, as you said, because it changed the way people participate to their learnings. And I think this is the main subject for gamification in organization today, from my perspective. For example, I've been working with a client in France. They are trying to create some trainings about social dialogue, and we've been making together 15 games about this subject. There are some escape games about gender equality, escape game about crisis management, board games about remote working, or about sustainable development. And the idea of my job is to bring all that expertise, all that content into a format that everyone can understand and can be active with. They have to play with the content so they can really understand what they are doing and why they are doing this. And I think the second subject, which is one of the most important for organization, is change management, because as Carlos said, there's really something about engagement. The fact that the game is fun makes people want to participate. And for change management, that's really important, because then employees become actors of the change. They are not passive, and that makes something really new. For example, I've been working on new roadmaps that needs to be deployed through an organization, and that's a good way to make people active about this. What will it change for them? How they do understand it? And that's a good way to use gamification or in organization. But in general, there's a lot of subjects an organization can work with about gamification. I was thinking about employee experience in general. Training and change management is part of this, but there's also other subjects you can work on, like onboarding or anything else. It can be also for external parts, with customer experience, for example, to engage your customer into your brand. It can be about gamified meeting to produce something in a different way, about new ways of working. Could be about collaborative design workshop. There's really lots of fields that can be investigated with gamification for organization.
All right. Thank you, Tobias. What I really, want the audience to understand out of this panel is how can those games be real? So how can we in an organization really play those games, right? So you mentioned now how what are the topics that could be covered, which from an organizational performance perspective, we know, and probably many of us and also the audience were part of, workshops, trainings, brainstorming sessions, nowadays design thinking, and so on. So what I would really like here to make it simpler also to understand, if you can give us maybe 1 or 2 examples of game boards that you worked on in a specific context, and how this was taken by the participants in that specific instance.
I can talk about a project that is called Bunker. It's a board game about test and learn. The idea was to create a game about 2 hours that could really make people understand what test and learn is and what failure culture is. And when I had to work on this subject, the first thing I asked myself is, how can I make people understand what is test and learn? And I think the best way for people to understand is to practice it. They have to live an experience, an experience that will change the way they work and make them understand that there's other way to do things than the one they already know. So I was thinking about the gameplay, the game mechanics I can use, and I thought that, okay, if maybe one way to test to experiment, test and learn is to make some tests, learn, and try again until you succeed. So I decided that my game needs to have several elements that you can combine together, like maybe 20 elements you can combine to a team of 6 elements. And each time you try, you get more information, so you can do a new combination, and there's only one working. That was the main idea of the game. And then I had to think about, how can I make people want to play this game? And this is another part which is really important about game design, is storytelling. You have to create a story that can help people project in. My conviction, I think that for training game, you need to be on a fictional environment, because it's secure and it helps people participate, because what they say and what they do doesn't have any impact on their everyday life. So you have to create that fictional environment that helps you participate. So I decided that my game will be in another world, and it will be about the end of the world. So my elements that I need to combine are people. There are 24 survivors. Each one has some skills that can be useful, and they build together a bunker, but there's only 6. There's only room for 6 of them inside. So you have to choose the right team of 6 people, depending on their skills, to survive in the bunker for 1 year. The problem is you don't have any information on their skill. So you have to try one combination, and every time you play, you learn a bit more about this survivor has some farming skills. This one has some, I don't know, skills about medicine or anything else. And every time you try, you can change the team, remove some people, add some others, and you can try to get through the year inside the bunker to get a bit further every time. So that was the main idea of the tool. But in the game design process, there's something you can't miss. It's test. You have to test your game and test it again and again and again and again. And that's why, how you're going to make it evolve into something that is really useful. So every time I test this game, I had some new ideas to create something very complete. First time I understood that if there's if every players live the same years inside the bunker, then game seems a bit fake. So I decided to add some random events that will make every game a new story and a new experience. then I tried I tried it again, and so that I had to decrease difficulties. Players needed like 10 to 15 attempts to succeed, and I had to decrease it because it's a bit long. The first games were about 3 hours. So I decided that there's not only one combination that works, but there's a bit more issues you can get. And then I tried again, and I understood that the fact that people are living the experience of test and learn is not enough. You need some trainers giving the right messages at the end. So I had in the book of rules of the game, I had some content, expertise about test and learn and failure culture that can be given at the players at the end of the game. And that's how we design a game and get a bit further every time. The impact of this game is that now we have a game that can be reused for any clients that want to train their teams about failure culture, sorry, and test and learn. And it's something we can really take and deploy on every organization we want.
Okay, well, so if I want to simplify, Tobias, it could be something like you know, a real Monopoly, right? So you're instead of playing the Monopoly on a board, you're playing it real with the characters that are people in the organization, that are employees. But now at that specific moment in time, they are in a fictional world, right? So and I really liked what you said there. It's important for anyone who's part of the game to ensure kind of, right, that whatever is going to happen or whatever decision he's going to take or she's going to take in that environment is not impacting their role in the organization. And what I mean, you clearly described the challenges in the design process. So how you want to let people understand the game itself, how you want to let people start playing it, and maybe afterwards, how to let people get the impact from this game, and how to translate or to convert this impact into you know, something that is more tangible to the organization and more meaningful to them. So my last point here, and maybe I would like to have your thoughts before moving into you know, the impact on the whole organization, is how is the perception of leaders, of top management for these games? So does it really work you know, bottom up? So someone who has the idea of engaging the team, does it work this way? And then go up all the way to top management to say, yeah, the outcome is good, and I would like to encourage you further? Or do you see it more sometimes going from top to bottom? So the leaders are the ones who really believe in gamification and the impact of gamification and bring it onwards down.
I really think it's both. Sometimes it comes from the bottom, a team that want to work in another way. They want to try something else, and those are coming to us with some gamification. When it comes from the top, it's from my point of view, it's a bit different, because they are not asking for gamification. They are asking big objectives, and it's our answer that is gamification. For example, we've been working with some very large companies about their new roadmap for the next 5 years. And they want that everyone in the organization can understand and this roadmap and can build an action plan about it. They didn't ask for gamification, but we suggest that maybe a good way to understand a new roadmap is to have a role play, prospective one, where we are in 2030 and the roadmap is already a success. then every participant, every player has to explain how they make it possible, how they do change the organization to reach a new strategy. And this was not something our client asked. That's our ways of dealing with those subjects. So yeah, today I think, because gamification is kind of a new topic into organization, I think from the bottom it's people that are convinced by gamification and they want to try this, and from the top it's people trying to reach some big objectives, and this is just the way we answer to it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tobias, for the answer. And I believe the key takeaway that I take from your answer here is the importance of co-design. So when we sit with the top leaders and we really understand what they want to achieve, then this is the best way to start the game design process, right? So I believe this is a quite critical start, which will take me actually to a few points I would like to cover, and I'm aware of time, so I'm going to be concise. But building on what Carlos and Tobias started, so in brief, we all agree that gamification is about engaging employees or beneficiaries, because at the end of the day, it can go also external in a different way. So the importance of having this captured or this done in a successful manner, we need to start by being realistic. And we all need to understand that it may be for some cultures, for some organizations, for even some geographies, maybe a bit unusual, right? It may be something different. And Tobias mentioned change management, also Carlos talked about processes and improving them. So all these changes, when they are induced, we need to estimate some reactions, right? So our people may have few reactions. Eventually, either people will like it and will enjoy, so they will love what's happening. People, maybe some of them will not understand, and therefore if they don't understand, they will not be able to engage, and eventually they will lose the whole purpose, or the organization will lose the whole purpose. Or also they could understand, but they may show no interest at all. So they may say, you know, they instead of benefiting from this fun, they could make fun of it and destroy the whole purpose. So in my opinion, in order to succeed in this, in inducing this change that we are calling today gamification, synergy is the keyword that I'm going to use. And this synergy I'm building on where you finished, Tobias, is a synergy between few elements. The first element there is the objectives of the organization. What do we really want to achieve from this? Some people may underestimate this question. They may say, yeah, you know, we always start with this, but this is a critical start. And without knowing where we want to go, we will never go. The second element that is important to succeed in gamification is the design process. So we really cannot engage anyone to do this design process. This person has to have a good understanding of the organization, of the gaming itself, and of people reactions. And what you described, Tobias, in terms of iterating the preparation and the design of the game is what I'm referring to here. The third element is the understanding of our own people as an organization. So if we really do not understand or have an idea on how our people would react, we may fail. So this is something critical to synergize on. Then I would like to cover the culture of the organization. The more rigid the culture maybe the better we can, or the sooner we need to start with gamification. And I'm gonna get into that in a bit. And the last point that I wanted to cover here is the impact that this exercise or gamification could have, and more important, its sustainability. So what we really want to show our people when we do gamification is that there is an outcome. This outcome, we led to it in a fun way, but then the outcome is realistic and is real and is gonna happen. And not only that, is gonna happen, and we're gonna make sure that it remains there. And if we do not do this from the first time when we apply gamification, then we killed the whole process. So I really advise organizations to move forward with gamification, but ensure that there is a synergy with all of these elements. So all these are prerequisites to succeed. One, here I would like to share, by the way, 7 elements that I would like to leave with today. The first one is we need to open to try new things. We need to be open to try new things. We need to have no fear of failure, because this could fail. So we should be aware that this is an open exercise, and we need to have a tolerance for failure. The second point is to have a clear identification of the objective of the exercise. The third point is onboard the right game designer, because the requirements are important, the techniques, the dynamics, and more important, to match the tool with the specific objective. Number 4, do it right. Do it as planned, but keep the agility open, and building on what Suha mentioned a bit earlier, keep yourself open to immediate adaptation. Number 5, try to have an observer in the room, someone from your team who is observing how people are reacting to it, if this is something new, to take note and to ensure that the second time you learn and you take action of how people are reacting to gamification. Number 6, make sure that the solutions or outcomes are well documented, and importantly, having a team to insert those outcomes in the organization processes afterwards to make sure that it is leading to a tangible result. And number 7, collect feedback and try it again, because there is a big belief, and it is now proven, that gamification works. What I would like to close with is that gamification is, as also Carlos described it, a process that boosts innovation and knowledge management. It's a tool that can be used, but there is also something that is common between gamification, knowledge, and innovation management, which I call sense, seize, and shape. The 3 of them have it, the S3. Sensing, because we are touching and having a feeling of how our people would react to that. Seizing, because we want to capture the opportunity and build on it. And shaping, because we really want this opportunity to become real and to have an outcome, and a tangible outcome with results. The last thing that I'm going to close with is we may have covered a lot of points that are related to the private sector, but the government agencies is by no means today, they are by no means today far from gamification. This has been started in a way, inducing concepts like design thinking and rethinking services is one way ahead towards gamification. Community engagement that is happening across the world, and also in the UAE and in Dubai specifically with activities done by Dubai Municipality is a good example to that. And I believe now when we talk about gamification is the next level of this engagement, be it with employees or with our beneficiaries. This is the next level. And yes, this next level would have risks to be taken. And as we were taught in Dubai by the leadership, if you don't change, you cannot improve, right? So change is something that is continuous, and we really need to keep changing, keep adapting, keep improving of what we are doing for the best and for the future. So this is how I wanted to close our session. Tobias, Carlos, thank you very much for your inputs. And I would go back to Soha and Peter.
Cesar, thank you very much. And Professor Carlos and Tobias, thank you. That was a really interesting presentation. Again, a lot of things to think about, a lot of learning happened. So once again, thank you for your presence and your contributions to this conference. So with that, we're at the end of our conference, except we're going to turn it over to Soha, and she can give us some takeaways and any announcements from Dubai Municipality. So Soha, up.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cesar, Carlos, and Tobias. Yes, it was very interesting, very insightful, and I'm very sure that it has lots of new information for people about it. Let's go to the takeaways for the conference for today. We had actually a long list of takeaways from that, but we will summarize them as much as we can. First of all, public and private partnership is simply a win-win for both of them. We have seen a very successful example between the Dubai government and Gini, which resulted in the development of the 4G program in the DGEP, the Dubai Government Excellence Program. And we're encouraging governments to open to that and to understand and to realize the significance of such partnership between both of them. Government should refrain from what is called, or the perception of, we are a public sector and we cannot, because we are public, we are not private. No, it is now the time for the integration and the collaboration for the sake of the country itself and for the sake of the humanity. Second thing, which is the having an innovation system, or knowledge and innovation system. It is inevitable, however, making a balance between having structured systems to guide and having the balance of being agile and flexible. A system does not mean that I have to go to be very bureaucratic. No, it is just a guide for me. However, I have to be very agile, very flexible, and always proactive as well. Conversation. When it comes to conversation, we can understand that it is the way humans can already communicate. We can never communicate without conversations. Yes, we are in the digital age. Yes, it might be. People are less talking to each other physically. However, conversation still exists. Conversation, the way of conversation, the channels might already change, but it is there. And it is our way to build collective learning, to build new ideas, to think together, and never to be in isolation. Whatever the world is taking us, we will work with that. We will still be connected. Last, the gamification. Gamification, yes, it is a very, very fantastic thing. And it is very important and very crucial thing to understand and to start to implement. But I can refer from the last session, which is, yes, it is new, so it might be a trial, and trial can take failure, and it can be also success. So just accept what we are learning, and if it is a new thing, don't be afraid. Don't feel that, no, I cannot do it. Never say that. Just try the thing and see what others can do and learn from them, share the experience, communicate, and connect.
Thank you, Soha. Any announcements, anything you want to let people know about before we shut the conference?
Yes. Knowledge Connect is the name of our conference. However, it is the intended strategy of how we are going to communicate with each other. We will still connect it. We will be doing various sessions together. We will be announcing shortly about the series of sessions. We will have our speakers. We would also like to invite you who are very interested, who would like to join us as audience, who would like to join us as speakers, who have ideas for the topic that we are going to have. So please send us, and my email address and my colleague's email address will be there on the chat. Please feel free and connect with us always. And we are together. It is not only about Dubai, not only about the Middle East. We want to connect globally. We are all together in this world for a better humanity. Thank you,
Soha. And with that, those nice words, that draws us to the end of our conference. And before we shut the cameras off, again, I would just like to mention that even though you've only seen from Dubai Municipality, Soha, and myself, there have been so many people, and there's many of us around the room right now, actually, that have been involved, that have contributed to the success of this project. We have the marketing department, environment department, knowledge department, many, many different parts, the Director General's office. The cooperation and agility which I've seen over the last few days is amazing. The synergy has been fantastic, actually. And again, the technical company that's done all the work here for the lighting and the sound is really outstanding. So for me, it's been a great success and a great experience. And the last is the audience, the people out in the virtual world. I hope you enjoyed. I'm really glad you were here. And I guess I shouldn't forget about our presenters and speakers. Wonderful job, really, really wonderful. We appreciate not only the words, but the passion that you shared with us and the wisdom. So from Dubai, from Knowledge Connect, we bid you adieu, but hopefully we'll be seeing you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, and if you allow me just 1 minute, I would like to thank our Director General, His Excellency Dawood Al-Hadri, and also the Knowledge and Innovation Director, Engineer Ahmed Al-Bidwawi, as well as the marketing team led by Laila Abbas. They have helped us a lot with the IT and all of the people in Dubai Municipality to get it done and to keep going on it. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the speakers. Thank you for all the audience, and please stay connected.